Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 20. Today we have Kevin Harrison. If you want to say hello there, Kevin.
Hi, everyone.
So Kevin's got a really interesting story. Worked in the sheep sector in various different facets, which we'll get into. And you might actually be thinking, I recognise him. And you might not even be someone that's totally in the sheep sector. And the reason for that is he's shot to fame over recent weeks and months, I guess you could say, as he appeared in Clarkson's farm. So another thing we'll be getting into. So maybe we'll be able to tap into this sort of Grand Tour fandom with this interview. But we'll start. We'll get into chat with yourself there, Kevin. What's your sort of background? Are you from a farm, or did you come into farming later in life?
Well, I've been farming. Well, it was a childhood dream, really. I wasn't from farming stock, so to speak. So sort of got into it about the age of 13. I ended up on a farm riding a horse on a riding stables and liked it, and ended up going back. My parents didn't like the outdoor lifestyle. Well, mum was better, but dad hated anything like that. But yeah, and then I just started helping with the horses, and then started helping with the cows and things like that, and never looked back. Ended up in well, just a lifetime in farming. Really, it's been wonderful.
Excellent. And it gets quite the hard rap, farming, for being really hard to get into, and there's no doubts about it. There's barriers, but I mean that there is proof that you don't have to. So you started doing a bit of farmhand work at 13. Where was the sort of transition from there to where you are at the minute?
Well, I started to enjoy it, and then you start thinking, well, what could I do? Well, I wasn't clever enough to be a vet. I wasn't a big fan of school, so another 6 years at university didn't appeal to me. So I thought, well, I could get into farming, and I set my goal high, and I thought I'd go to farm management and go and did a 3-year diploma at agricultural college. People my age might remember YTS, where they paid you £27 to do a week's hard graft, and then you got this little qualification at the end of it. Farmers love that because they get people like me and pay them hardly anything. And then we worked out. Yeah, then did my diploma, and then set out on my travels, but always trying to learn along the way. Always trying to do a good job, and that led to more opportunities. I did 9 years up in. I actually advertised myself in the Farmers Weekly. Actually, when I left college, I was self-employed. And I got a job up in Rutland. That was driving some of the biggest and best machinery that was coming on market there. It's old school now, but that was good fun. And then I got made redundant quite quickly, and then got another job, and ended up with a big farming company then, and started going towards a bit more livestock-wise. Started running a big flock for a Russian prince and princess as part of the Century Farming Group. Yeah. And that was good as well, because we got a little bit of training on that as well, and started to work with good people in the industry, just trying to do a good job. And then I ended up coming down here as a farm manager 21 years ago. So I'm now farm manager for a company called JT Bayliss Farming. It's a family farm on the edge of Bath, right on the Cotswold Escarpment. It's a bit like a Welsh hill farm, but in Somerset. But so I've ended up here. And there's other exciting things have happened along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what YTS then, was that the sort of old equivalent of the modern apprenticeship? Is that? It
was like youth training scheme. They did it on all industries. It's probably called slave labour now.
I was going to say when slave labour was allowed. Also, for most of our viewers up here in Scotland, I know Rutland's not actually north. That's just what they say in England for some reason.
Did I say up north?
It's true you say though, isn't it? When you go to one of these places with all this kit, I am from a farm, but like 100 horse tractor was the biggest I'd ever seen. And I remember going into a farm in Essex. I did 2 summers there, and you see this kit and you're like, oh my God, like I've seen houses smaller, It's exciting times. It's a great learning curve.
And you see 16, 17-year-olds driving them down the road. That's that's the scary bit as well. But
It's
yeah,
question, I think, is maybe the answer.
I think I struggle now. I get bored sat on a tractor.
Okay.
Two or 3 hours. I'm starting to find it tedious.
I think if you've got the CB radios, and you can talk to each other and stuff, that's quite good fun. But if you're just in your own and you're power harrowing or something, yes,
Yeah.
I'm definitely with you.
Yeah.
Just for the viewers, one thing I thought was brilliant when you email Kevin, and normally it says at the bottom send from my iPhone or something. It says sent from my tractor, which I thought was excellent.
I always change that. It depends who I'm talking to.
Okay.
And it shows an attention to detail on the other end, because some people just skim through an email, don't they?
Yes.
And but if they've noticed the bottom bit, they've read all the email.
Well, I kind of had to, because if I didn't, then we wouldn't have arranged this. So, just you're now the farm manager. 21 years, did you say, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what sort of stock are you running there?
So we got North Country mules.
Okay.
We're normally up about 900. We've got a little bit less this year for different reasons. And when I first came here, we had suckler cows, nice black Hereford Friesians, and used to put a Charolais on those. And then we used to outwinter the calves for stores and then sort of sell them in February stores. And then when the new single farm payment scheme came in, which isn't new any longer,
Yeah.
it just got harder and harder, and nitrogen vulnerable zones and things like that. It got harder and harder to keep the cattle, and then we had TB to finish it all off as well. So they went, and we just increased the sheep numbers. So it's just purely focusing on sheep on the livestock side. We did all our own arable work. We got a couple hundred acres of arable, but that soon became clear as the price of machinery and everything went up, that it was going to be easy to get contractors in to do it. Just did things like fertilizing and carting our own bales and things like that. Just keep the fixed costs down, really.
Is that wheat and barley OSR?
Well, we were on a 3-year rotation, which was wheat, rape, and barley, but in the end, we went to just spring barley every year, and then half of the arable we could then put stubble turnips into winter feed for the ewe lambs, because we always buy our replacements as ewe lambs and bring them down and bring them on home here.
Excellent. Very good. Quite a place then.
It's got amazing views as well. It's we're pretty high. Yeah, we can see right up on the top of the farm. You can see from the Mendips right round to Wales and then up to the Malverns if you stand in the right place. So
is that right?
You can see. Yeah.
That's impressive. Lovely. Very nice. In your spare time, you're also quite a busy man. Very, actually, when you look
what
at the CV.
What is spare time?
Oh, true. Yeah. So, okay, you're 9 to 5 when it's not a 9 to 5 as a farm manager, and you're 5 to 9 as other stuff. Let's go with that. Or you're 7 to 8 then. So you're heavily involved in the NSA, the National Sheep Association.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about that as well, Kevin?
Yeah.
What they
do? So obviously the farming is my background. I've been a member of the NSA for a long time, but didn't really get actively involved in till probably 7 or 8 years ago, and sort of worked up through sort of regional chairmanship, and I'm now the chairman, English committee chairman, and just go out there and lobby government on behalf of the sheep industry, try and help sheep farmers, try and deliver the message back to them. And it's great the way the NSA is structured, because it's got these regional areas, and each region has a committee, and they can feed into their committee. Then each committee then has places on the English committee. So then it's like just a meeting of minds, and then we can help Phil Stocker, our CEO, sort of plot his journey and how to lobby the government on what we want. And it's just, it punches above its weight. It's a really good association. It's a charity. It's a members association. And there's a great deal of work done by a lot of sheep farmers to, help the NSA in what they do.
No, it's a great, well, not company charity. It's a great. Is it NFU based? Kevin,
Nothing to do with the
affiliated.
NFU.
No, is it not?
No. Don't say that.
I'll put my hands up and I will not talk about that again. No, I didn't know if it was affiliated because obviously it's quite similar to sort of lobbying.
We try if there's common ground, we try and work together and use each other's strengths. And if there's something really, really important that we can lobby government together with, we will do that. So yes, it's only a bit of banter there. But.
I know. I'll just how you might not know this, but how sort of many members are you looking at throughout the country?
Just over 6,000 at the moment.
Is it?
Throughout the country, yeah.
Is that just England or is that?
That's everywhere. I think Scotland would probably have the same amount of members as the Southwest, something like that, and then the North would be quite a big area. But all the regions are good and are well supported. It's great.
No, it's a thing I've sort of always been aware of. We've got Scotch sheep up in Scotland. I don't know if you've got an equivalent, but that's NSA backed for sure. And one of the best, I don't know, not websites, but web pages there is that lambing list. I think it's excellent. I tell a lot of our students, tell a lot of folk that maybe aren't at college and just really want to give lambing a shot to have a look at it. It's brilliant.
We have our main event at Malvern every other year. It was cancelled last year, but we got that coming up next year, which is a really good one, very similar to Scotch sheep. And then in the interim years, we always have regions have their own events as well. So,
and where was that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch.
Malvern. The main event. Yeah, I think off the top of my head, and I might get in trouble. I think it's the 27th of July.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. Might be a wee trip in the summer.
Yeah, no, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great. I've never been.
And also, I sit on the UK Policy and Technical, because you mentioned Scotland, the UK Policy and Technical Committee as well, which then brings all the devolved nations together.
Okay.
So we can talk about each devolved nation's problems as well, and understand what they're trying to do and their problems they're trying to farm around and what their governments are doing. So that's really good as well.
So is that policy in general, or is that strictly agricultural?
Mainly sheep farming, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's the NSA UK Policy and Technical Committee.
Sorry, I thought
it's great because So you get Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, all their chatting about their hurdles and things like that.
Yeah, well, everywhere's different, isn't it? And if we don't talk about it, we're just going to channel it in one way.
The Scottish talk the most.
We're known for it. Is that a bad thing? Maybe it is. I should probably continue with the programme at heart here. You mentioned about NSA sort of punching above its weight. And from what I understand, there's sort of work overseas being done. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we're trying to work on quite a few things, actually. As trade deals are opening up, we're sort of trying to do inward missions. We've done quite a bit into South America, where that's nearly about to open up. And I've spent a lot of time in China over the years doing inward missions, just connecting with sheep farmers, and I think definitely at the moment trying to work on a license so we can export germplasm, semen and embryos over there. But we can't at the moment because of the past scrapie issues. So we're sort of, trying to prove how good we are now at traceability and how we've sort of tried how we've eradicated it. The UK is the stockyard of the world, really, isn't it? The genetics from the UK is all over the world. You've only got to look at the most successful sheep countries in the world, and they're all boasting UK genetics. The Dorset, you've got the Dorper, the Dormer, a lot of the Australian stuff, and they're even coming to us for our genetics so they can sell into places like China. So we're just trying to get in there, see what there's some massive sheep farms in China now. I've been to farms now where there's 100,000 sheep on slats and sheds, and they got a really good ewe, which is called a Hu sheep, and it's a bit like the Dorset. You can lamb it all season round. It has lots of lambs. It's quite domesticated. It doesn't quite have the shape on it, so they're looking at better terminal size to improve shape. And if we can open the door through exciting them about our genetics, then hopefully we could open the meat market and start sending them lamb then as well. So it sometimes feels like you're banging your head against a brick wall, but I think it'll be worth it in the long run.
You would think it's got to be. Is there much of a wool industry out in China, or is it solely meat as well?
Well, they buy a lot of our wool anyway, so
Yeah.
so obviously the prices have been down because no one's really been buying wool this
Yeah.
year or last year because of the cruise ships weren't replacing their carpets, hotels weren't replacing their carpets, China weren't really manufacturing much. So, but yeah, and it's quite interesting when you start talking to people. Some are try and work with wool shedders, and others really want the wool because they like the wool over there. It's interesting to see where that will go, the whole wool situation.
What's your opinion on that? Where do you think we are going with the wool situation? Just continuing downward, or do you think there's a resurgence there?
It is the most sustainable fabric out there, isn't it? Okay, might have a few issues with sort of cleaning it and processing it, and we could put it in roofs. So we need to find a use for it. There are some breeds that will shed it. They never used to have wool on, did they? Sheep, until someone thought it'd be a good idea to breed the wool into these sheep.
Yeah.
So you can see the popularity of wool shedders growing now. A bit more easy care, less hassle with the wool, and especially if legislation changes on castrating and tailing and things like that, we might wool's going to become a nuisance. But that's not me doing down the wool industry. It's a great industry, and we need to support British wool. And yes, the wool prices have been on the floor, but at least the lamb prices have been up there helping us get over that. So we shouldn't grumble too much. Yeah, keep the pressure on them, and hopefully get out the other side of the pandemic, and it'll lift again.
No, absolutely. And I mean, like our lamb price and our meat price in general is our main one, and it's doing great. And I have actually written this down to talk about the impact of COVID. But just quickly on the easy care thing, I think when I started college, it's got 7 years ago now. It doesn't feel like that, but when I started college, there was a sort of almost looking down idea on easy care, and I think there's been a general spike in them now, just when you realise the possibilities of that. But
I do. You say about what I do outside my 9 to 5. I do a little bit of freelance stuff as well, which maybe come on to later. But I did do a little bit of work with the ex-Lanas this time, and I went down to their sale, and you look round who's there buying it, and they made good money, man. You see who's buying it. It's youngsters who are looking ahead to what's round the corner with elms and different animal health pathways. And things like that. That and the genetics are improving on these wool shedding breeds. And these people understand genetics, and I think you'll see a rise in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at sort of wool at the minute, I'm not going down the wool rabbit hole. Just a quick thing to talk about though. You're probably looking at a loss of about £1 an animal from the shearing process before you consider your own time, before you consider the food you put on for the shearers. So yeah, you can totally see why it's shifting in that direction.
Yeah, we shear twice, so because I shear at housing at Christmas.
So okay, of course, yeah.
Our ewes come in. We come in at Christmas between Christmas and New Year. We scan them, we shear them, and then we lamb in March. And they're on a sort of straw and nuts basis, so it's good to have the wool off, and when they go out, they're much more thrifty, and if you have a shower of rain, and they sort of shake themselves off and they go. If you have a snowstorm, they go and hide and take their lambs with them. So
just when you mentioned scanning there, yours will be scanning quite high, quite prolific.
Yeah, we're always over 200 and 205, some years 215, which is a bit of a nightmare because mules don't really rear 3, so we usually end up with some on a machine, which is normally just a pain.
Well,
you bring them into the world, you got to look after them.
Exactly. No, I mean they are a pain, but there's as this year's proven, there's a market to make some from them, which is good. So Yeah, we'll jump on to COVID there just quickly, Kevin. We mentioned land price and wool price and stuff, and really when you look at COVID, I don't like saying the term COVID has been good for farming because that just feels wrong to profiteer from something like a pandemic. But the general prices have literally been higher and are in a what I would say a just place, a good place. How do you think COVID's affected the sheep industry specifically, and do you think it's going to have a knock-on impact?
But I think of it, it's focused the mind of the consumer, hasn't it?
Yeah,
And the high prices we're getting at the moment, it's not due to export. That's due to the fact that people have suddenly appreciated the quality of their food and where it's come from, and they're going to um, local producers, buying it, knowing that it's sustainable and where it's come from. So I think, and all of a sudden, some of the people are, through furlough and stuff, they still had some money. You couldn't go to a pub and have a meal, couldn't go shopping. So well, let's treat ourselves. Let's cook our own nice meals. So, and it was a bit of treat to go out to a farm shop and buy some quality food. So, and then they start to think about, where their stuff's come from, and it's not about just vegetarianism or veganism, or you don't necessarily have to do all that, although it's a personal choice. You don't have to do that to save the planet. You can keep stuff local, sustainable, and be aware of what you're eating and how it's produced. So I think it's focused people's mind on that. The danger is that maybe the government doing trade deals abroad for other with lower standards could kick back on that, but hopefully we'll do enough to educate the consumer into making the right decision for themselves.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I don't think any of us disagree with the potential merits of reduced meat consumption and stuff. But when you're looking at the local area, which here in the UK and specifically in Scotland and areas like yourself, the local product that is easier to produce is meat. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, you've really got to do some research in your local area. And for the most part, meat in a UK diet is the most environmentally friendly.
It's a balanced plate and a balanced argument, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I can look from the top of my hill. I can see a dairy farmer down in the valley who makes his own cheese and sells his own meat, his own milk. And I've got my lambs running around there. You can see corn grown on the good ground, and it's all there.
Absolutely, and I think we're getting that message out. I think a lot of us are. We're pushing that sort of discussion, and folk are having these chats, and it's getting to be known that it's not just meat is bad, But I feel like that's a rabbit hole we could go down for weeks. You mentioned Australia there, the trade deal. What do you think that means for the industry?
Well, there's still a bit of blurred edges with it, and I think the government, the cabinet, probably fell out a little bit over it as well with different agendas, because you had people like Michael Gove and George Eustace promising that they wouldn't sell us down the river, throw us under the bus, and then you got Liz Truss having to do her job as well and open these trade deals. And I think we'll have to accept that we may at times be the pawn in the battle, but I think Australia will also wake up to. I mean, their biggest market, China. So it might be that certain people will raise their welfare standards to send it over here. So you might have a two-tier food production systems in Australia, where different stuff goes to different places, because China's hungry. China needs protein, so that they wouldn't question where their food comes from as much as a UK consumer. But it's just about educating that consumer where they get it from as well, and if they want to go and get a slab of Australian meat from a cash and carry at the right price, or if they're not asking where their stuff comes from when they go in a restaurant, then that's what you might be eating. It's a bit like carbon, isn't it? Mm. Is carbon offsetting, is that acceptable, really? If you've got a business that produces lots of carbon, how can you go and buy a woodland and offset it? You're still producing that carbon.
Yeah.
And those trees are still storing that carbon, or that permanent pasture is still storing that carbon, regardless of who owns it.
I've never been fully sold on offsetting. I think offsetting's better than not offsetting, but I don't think I'm fully sold on it. Because I mean that woodland was still there, as you say. Just because you own it now doesn't mean you're different.
You haven't built a field to store carbon. But
I think if you start going into offsetting with something like welfare, I think we have I don't think that's a good thing to go in.
No, we got world-class standards here, and we do give Red Tractor some grief sometimes for some of the strange standards they come out with, and there's some interesting stuff in there, but at least it sort of puts a backbone in it, as long as they listen to the farmers and the consumers as well. But then for us to be constrained so much by all this legislation and standards and rules, and then just let a load of stuff be shipped in, it's painful, really.
Yeah, it's almost hypocritical, but if it's just anyway, yeah, interesting. One other thing that I'm pretty sure you mentioned you're involved in is SCOPS. Now, I know I've got some students listening to this, so I better try and remember it. Sustainable control of parasites in sheep.
That's the one.
I couldn't remember it was sheep at the end. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about what SCOPS do, what they are, that sort of thing?
So SCOPS really is a steering. So it's a sustainable control of parasites in sheep, and quite a long time ago now. You got me off guard on that, on the years, but it'll be 10, 12 years, I'm sure. It was set up because they were starting to understand that there was resistance in some of the anthelmintics that are used on sheep for internal parasites. So it was started from that to try and teach farmers best practice on the use of products. And it contains the steering group is made up of people like the NSA, AMTRA, ARDA. I'm going to get in trouble for missing NFU, Sheep Vet Society, Morden, and everyone. It's the great thing about it is it's a mixture of very clever people in their own departments, and it all comes together as one melting pot to discuss the best ways forward for all of it. And amazingly, it's chaired by a farmer who probably knows very little compared with everyone else sat around that table. But the farmer is the one it's there for and who is used for. And we got Rob Helliwell as well, who's the vice chairman. So, it just approaches. So at the moment, we're working on things like a new anthelmintic resistance working group, just to really pin down on how we get the advice across to farmers once they have found out if they've got anthelmintic resistance. We're doing a lot of work with a subgroup which Philip Scouse is in, and that's about anthelmintics and products with the environment and what the effect is on the environment with in certain times of use. And just making sure. Another thing we've done is DIPA accreditation, mobile DIPA accredited sort of code of practice for those, just to try and get things done properly. And we on the website there is so much stuff on there. We got a technical manual. It's like a tree, and you can click, and so your students would love that. And if there's something you need to know, just go on there, look under technical manual, and it'll drop down. So if you say you went into anthelmintic resistance, they'll come down with different papers. Quarantine. We're just actually in the process of changing our quarantine information, treatment information, to try and take into account more liver fluke and scab risk. And now with the new ELISA test for scab, we can sort of test before we treat, because there's a little bit of resistance now, or fear of resistance coming into the 3 mLs, which is the injectables that people use for scab. So SCOPS is about using medicines responsibly, so we can use them in the future as well, so we can keep farming sheep. Because if we can't control parasites, we can't farm sheep outside.
Yeah. So, what would a sort of, maybe someone's listening to this that's just got into sheep farming and they're aware of anthelmintic resistance, but not sure specifically how to sort of work with it. What would a sort of general surface touching method be of controlling these parasites?
So I can't stress enough, work with your health advisor, your vet, and talk to your rama. Don't go on Facebook and see what everyone else is doing. So they're the people with the knowledge. They know what products are the right products. They should know about anthelmintic resistance. You should do tests to see what you are resistant to. You need to be very careful on buying in sheep. Always use the correct quarantine treatment, which is all on the SCOPS website, and your health advisor should know about it. Choose a really good, knowledgeable health advisor as well would be another important thing, because it's a lot to take in on your own.
It blows my mind that you're not advising Facebook.
There is some questionable advice goes out on Facebook, but it's a good place. But you wouldn't treat your granny off of Facebook, would you? So why treat your sheep off of Facebook?
That's a really good one. You wouldn't treat your granny off, why treat your sheep? Good one. No, I owe a lot of what this whole Rural's Kitchen has become to Facebook. But if you only channel the negative energy on Facebook, you're in a hiding to it. It's not a good place in that sense.
Yeah. No, it's a great place, but it's for professional advice. You just need to be careful what you read and take on board. Really,
couldn't agree more. Is there anything else you fill your free time with before we get into?
Well, you can see my saxophones behind me. I'm playing a boogie woogie band. Pre-pandemic, we were probably out once or twice a week around sort of Somerset, and we do quite a few big festivals and vintage festivals. We sort of play 1950s boogie woogie stuff. So we got piano, got a female vocals, and double bass, and Harlem Rhythm Cats. Check them out. We got
Harlem
YouTube
Rhythm
page.
Cats.
If you can spell rhythm, you'll find it.
Wait a minute. RYTHYM. Right? No, that's RYTHEM. I don't know. I'll look it up.
There you
go. So as you say, what is free time? You're right. It doesn't sound like you have any, Kevin. So
so I've just gone on to the Register of Sheep Advisors, which is the new register for sheep advisors that the NSA and BASIS have been working on, which is great. So if people want to find a sheep advisor to help them with their flocks, it's called Rosa, and I think their tags normally sheep advisors, but you'll find it if you put Register of Sheep Advisors into Google, you'll find them. So so do a little bit of freelance from that, and SCOPS, and anything else that comes along.
Anything, exactly. So is Rosa a sort of assurance scheme for sheep advisors then? Is that how that works, or just so
it's like a CPD, continuous development points, and we have to do certain things throughout the year to keep our points up and maintain the standard. But it's not just there for ramas or SQPs or vets or anything. It's down to other people, a bit like myself, who just dabble a little bit, really.
Well, you say a little bit. It feels like you have no time, especially now that the band's off because of the pandemic. You get no time away from sheep.
No, we're back out gigging now, so that's good.
Are you? Good.
My daughter did say to me the other day, "Don't you get fed up with talking about sheep?" And then I thought about it. I thought she's got a point, actually. But I do when I do go out, I don't talk about farming. I do make sure that when I go out, I talk about something different.
I think you've got to detach yourself from it, or a lot of the farmers just find themselves living at 100%. Anyway, just when you mentioned you're back out playing, do you have a local show or anything? Has it been on, or?
Well, there was Bath and West, but that was a little bit early.
Right.
I like the three counties up at Malvern. That's really farmer orientated, but that was obviously cancelled. So no, I haven't. We haven't had one local here nearby
No.
that we've been able to go along to.
Yeah. No, it's a shame. I'm looking forward to them next year. Fingers crossed. Surely we have them next year. Um, yeah. But I mean, when I got in touch with yourself, Kevin, it wasn't actually the first time I got in touch with someone from the NSA. I didn't really have anyone in particular, but just someone to talk about the NSA in general. So I maybe got in touch a few months ago. So don't think I only got in touch with you because I saw you on the telly. But the reason I got in touch this time and started speaking to yourself was because I'd seen you on the telly. For those of you listening and watching, I'm almost certain you'll have seen Clarkson's Farm. But it was on Prime TV, and it was basically just a show of Jeremy Clarkson on his home farm and showing the sort of trials and tribulations, the positives and negatives of farming, and really showed it in an honest light, which was really good for agriculture, I think. But I'm going to ask you that in a wee minute there, Kevin. But how did Clarkson's Farm come about for yourself?
Well, it just needed a little bit of advice, really, steering in the right direction, just through his highs and lows. You know, he wanted to get some sheep, and he didn't not know what breeds to get. If anyone's watched the program, he was looking around, wondering what to get, and yeah, so in comes I, and and tried to guide him through it, really, which was interesting, and yeah, but we all wanted to do it right. We wanted to, do everything right and make sure it went well and everything was looked after, and that Jeremy learned as he went along, got stuck in and got involved too.
Did they contact you, or did it just come about by chance that it was yourself? Or...
It was sort of through association. They obviously heard of me and gave me a shout and asked me to help out. It didn't sort of pick my name out of a hat. But, yeah. Someone heard of me somewhere.
Yeah, good. I think the thing that I really liked about, as I just said, the Clarkson's Farm was we probably see Jeremy on Top Gear and things like that and Grand Tours. Just goes for things, and he will just go for things. And I think a few of us were probably thinking, how's this going to go? And I think it's really went well. It's done a lot for the industry. But what do you think it's done for farming and, focus on farming in general? He's obviously got arable crops to see. I think he's got cattle for the next season by the looks of his Instagram. But focus on sheep or focus on the general agricultural industry in the
UK? It's just got people talking about it, and it's great. And just the farmers have been saying to me, how it's really put across how difficult it is. There's not hidden stuff. It's not been fluffy bunny, as Kate Humble, as he says, but it's also been educational, but not too educational to turn the ordinary viewer off. So I just think it's great. And like a simple thing that someone was chatting to me the other day. Well, first of all, they didn't know who I was, and I heard them talking behind me, and then someone else said that I did know, and that was like when he took those ewes to the abattoir.
Yeah.
How moved he was by the fact of what he'd done, but then also that the fact that they showed him eating them afterwards.
Yeah.
And there is that disconnect between where your food comes from and that, but everyone were impressed with the fact that he showed it, and it's reality. But we don't send our animals off to be killed because we enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But it's there to feed people. So that sort of thing's great. And the difficulties and the weather, and we can't change the weather, can we? And you can't set that up. So that's the challenges. That's what we all get thrown at. That's what makes our decisions different every morning when we get up. What's thrown at us? We can't have a 10-week Gantt chart, can we? It's
no.
We got to get on. So it's put that message across, but not just in this country. It's worldwide. Australia, America. I think it goes to 200 countries. So right. it's putting British agriculture on the map again. So
yeah.
So
yeah.
it's all good.
No, sorry. On you go.
It's all good. I say.
Yeah, it is. I couldn't agree more. And it's got people talking about it out with the industry, but I feel like it's had a large uptake from farmers as well, and it's almost got farmers talking about farming when sometimes you could say we're guilty of not sort of promoting our own thing, our own product, our own. We sort of just hope it's fine, and getting us talking about it, and now people are starting to see folk again talking to the public with farmers and stuff. It can only be good, and that one when he dropped them off at the abattoir really resonated with me. I noticed it. I was like, he cares. He's not just in this. He's, let's be serious. The money side of the farm to Jeremy probably isn't a massive consideration. Yes, he's trying to do it correct, obviously, but he cares about it. It really matters to him, and it showed a heart in the farmer, which we need.
Yeah, I mean, he delivered on that, and that's what he wanted to get across at the start. So I think that was he's a clever man, and he wanted to get it across, and I think he did it. He's done a really good job.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. How was he to work with?
Do you know what? The amount of times I get, the two things I get asked: what's he really like, and what's the other one? Yeah, I can't remember the other, but I always said, "Well, you'll have to find out yourself, won't you?"
Okay, good one. Good one. That's true. He seemed pretty sound on camera. Seemed like he was just a typical farmer, maybe. No, good. We've sort of went around the houses there, Kevin. We've touched on a lot of things. Is there anything you think maybe I've missed on, maybe haven't touched upon that you'd like to talk about?
It's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's a bit strange talking about your own life for. Well, have we been an hour? Not quite.
No, I think we'll probably finish at about 55 minutes. I've got two more small questions to ask every time. But, I think folks struggle with that at first, actually. It's because I say it's like having a chat at a bar or something, but in actual fact, it's not unless you're a really confident. I'm
quite good at talking. It's job to shut me up sometimes.
Well, I totally empathise. So the two questions I sort of finish every podcast with, Kevin, is one is where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the second one is if you had any tips for someone coming into industry. I assume for you that's going to be sort of just farming in general, and probably be a really good example given you actually have come in. What would they be?
So when I was younger, I always used to plan ahead of me. So it was like, I'm not going to get married till I'm 25, and then no, I don't want to have kids till I'm maybe 27. I want to be a farm manager by the time I'm 30. And I did usually hit those goals. I don't know whether it was just coincidence or good planning or not. But now I've passed 50, and you start thinking, well, if I bought another sheepdog now, by the time that gets to the end of its working career, so will I. I'm getting a bit stiffer and a few more aches and pains, but I think I managed to get through it because you've learned so much as you go along. So next 5 years, I mean, sheep farming and where I work is the backbone to all the stuff we talked about. So I'd like to think I'd still be here. There's some great challenges coming along with elms. We might push a bit more down the environmental side and have a few less sheep. Hopefully the stuff I do with the NSA will lead to more, maybe my own TV series. And let me check about that bit. No,
Kevin's farm.
Kevin's no, I think I'm a long way down the list on that one. But 5 years, that make me 57. And it's a question I ask myself on a regular basis. If the government wants me to work till 68 before I retire, am I going to do that in an industry I love? But but everything I'm doing now stems back to that main backbone of my life, which is working on farms, which I've done all my life. And if you want to get into it, just talk to people, listen to people, learn from your mistakes, knock on doors if you have to, but just go out there with a passion. And you never know what door. You get down the corridor of life, there's many doors. You can choose to open them or ignore them and keep going, but you can't go back to that door on a lot of them. And then once you've opened that door, make the most of it, and just do it with a positive attitude. Keep smiling, and that will do. Will never do.
Good point.
Sort of things I go for.
Good one. I like the sort of thing you often don't get the chance to open a door that you haven't taken. You haven't decided to open before. It's good. Yeah. It's true.
And there's the opportunities there, and it doesn't have to be physical manual working on a farm now. The agricultural industry is massive, and there's some really intelligent people out there doing some great work, for the industry. So it's a massive industry.
It's interesting you say that as a kid that you sort of had like the dates and that, the ages that you're going to do. Hopefully my girlfriend doesn't in earshot, but 25 was always the age I thought I'd be married. I'm 24, so hopefully she hasn't heard that one. But it's funny. I've got that sort of regimented idea as to where things might happen. And I don't even know if it's a goal or subconsciously it is, but it's a good way of sort of creating a routine maybe, planning ahead. But that's been really good. I've really enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed it yourself.
No, it's very good. It's lovely to chat to you. Your podcasts are great. I think they're the style and everything's brilliant. So best of luck with them.
The heavily unprofessional style.
Well, give me a shout in 5 years. We'll do a proper one.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was actually just for those of you that are listening, just before Kevin came on there, I was saying I have actually bought some kit, which I think you might have seen in a previous podcast because this was filmed a wee bit earlier. I've got this, but I've got the wrong cable for it. So we're maybe getting a wee bit more professional, but not quite there yet. But yeah, appreciate your time. Obviously a really busy guy. But I hope you've enjoyed it and appreciate the kind words with the podcast as well. And we'll hopefully keep in touch.
Yeah, hopefully see you in person Monday.
Yes, let's hope. We'll speak to you later on, Kevin. Cheers.
Bye-bye.